Coming soon to theaters.
Frank Beardsley is a military man.
Christina!
We just moved here. Who could you possibly be talking to?
J. Crew. I want to make sure they change all my shipping information.
Helen North is the artsy type.
Homes are for free expression, not for good impressions. If you catch my drift.
If opposites attract...
Is this lady going to be our new mom?
I don't think so. It's just a blind date.
She can't see?
Frank and Helen were made for each other.
So, I asked her to marry me.
And I said yes.
What? It'll be fun having 10 new brothers and sisters.
Now, all they have to do is convince their kids.
Trust me, 1 hour, see together, gonna be best friends.
Listen up! These are your schedules with latrine times.
Mom gets married, we get drafted.
Come on, I have to get ready for school.
Nothing says time to get out of the bathroom like...
Fire! You guys are so dead.
Time that we call truce. None of us likes this situation. But if we want out, we need to unite against the greater enemy. An enemy named Mom and Dad.
Dennis Quaid, Rene Russo, yours, mine, and ours.
Otter, reline! Stop! Hey, hit the brake! Hit the brake!
And now our feature presentation.
Here's the George, curious little monkey. He's so full of curiosity. Here's the George, curious little monkey. He's as curious can be.
Curious George gets a pizza. Let's go out for supper tonight, George, said the man with the yellow hat, and we'll get some pizza. George was hungry. So off they went in their little blue car and drove to the pizza parlor. Tony the baker was behind the counter, getting the pizzas ready for baking. First, he flattened out a ball of dough into a large pancake. Then he tossed it in the air, spread the tomato sauce, sprinkled it with cheese, and shoved it in the oven. So that's how a pizza is made. Could he do it? George was curious. The telephone rang. The guard at the shoe factory wants a large pizza in a hurry, called Tony's wife. I'll get my coat, said Tony, and went into the back room. George jumped up on the counter, grabbed a big ball of dough, made 4 little balls, and pounded each one into a pancake just as Tony had done. Now he was ready to toss them into the air. How good that George was a monkey. He tossed them with all 4 hands. One landed on a coat rack. Another plopped right in the middle of the customer's table. One fell on the jukebox. And one smacked over the owner's head just as he came back into the room. Who did that? Shouted Tony. Where is he? Asked someone else. It's that monkey, a customer answered. In the alley was a small truck with the back door open. George jumped in. Now he was safe. You'd better hurry, said Tony's wife. The guard is still waiting for his pizza. They'll be closing the gates in a few minutes. I forgot all about it, said Tony. He got a pizza from the oven and packed it in a box. Then he left and put it in the back of the truck. And drove off. George was trapped inside. The truck rattled through the streets, up to the shoe factory. It was too late. The gates were locked. Oh, no, said Tony. How will I ever deliver the pizza? He opened the back door, and there was George. So that's where you've been hiding, cried Tony. I'm angry with you. You've been fooling around with my pizzas. He grabbed George by the arm. Suddenly, he stopped. I've got an idea, he said. You can make up for all that trouble. Take this pizza, climb up a gate, and deliver it to the guard at the back door. How good that George was a monkey. Look at that, shouted the guard. A monkey delivering my pizza. Boy, am I hungry. When George got back to the truck, Tony shook his hand. I'm going to make a special pizza for you when we get back. And that's what he did. George and his friend, the man with the yellow hat, ate a large pizza, thanked Tony, and drove back home in their little blue car. Curious George goes to the amusement park. Today's the opening of the new amusement park, George, said the man with the yellow hat. Let's go. They got into their little blue car and drove off. At the park entrance, they saw Yvonne. She was with her Aunt Ruby, who was wearing her new watch. We can't stay very long, said the aunt. I know, said Yvonne. We only have $1 for rides. George, why don't you get the ticket, said the man. I'll park the car, and don't get into trouble. The ticket booth was closed, but one of the windows was open just enough for a little monkey to get in. George wiggled through the window. A lever was sticking up from the counter. What was it for? George was curious. He pulled the lever. A roll of tickets popped up, and the ticket window opened. Now children came running from everywhere. Yvonne was the first in line. I didn't know you had a job selling tickets, George, she said. All I have is $1. How many tickets can I get? George pressed a button, and out came the tickets. Wow, Yvonne said happily. Aunt Ruby would be surprised. George gave tickets to the next person. And the next one. And the next one. Soon a long line had formed at the ticket window. Everybody got free tickets from George. Finally, the real ticket seller arrived. What's going on? He cried. Who's inside the booth? He ran to the door and unlocked it. A monkey, he shouted. Stop it. How dare you give away my tickets for free? George was scared. Quickly, he escaped through the window and ran away. George, shouted the ticket seller. Stop that monkey! A guard blew his whistle, and they both ran after George. But George had disappeared from the amusement park. What a place it was. There was the balloon man, and the house of mirrors, and the roller coaster, and the merry-go-round. There were places to eat and drink, and music was playing all over. George ran into the house of mirrors. How funny he looked. First tall, then short, then fat. But the owner chased him out. George had no ticket. He ran over to the roller coaster. Aunt Ruby and Yvonne were just coasting by. Something flew through the air. George saw it land on the woodwork. How good that George was a monkey. He climbed up the woodwork and got hold of it. It was Aunt Ruby's handbag. George picked it up and jumped to the ground. When the roller coaster had stopped, everybody got off. That was fun, said Yvonne. Not for me, said Aunt Ruby. I lost my new handbag. Let's look for it. And then she saw George. Look, she shouted. George found my handbag. She rushed over and hugged him. Thank you so much, she said. Just then, a hand reached out and grabbed George. It was the ticket seller. He was angry. I finally found you, he shouted. You come with me. George was scared. One moment, please, said Aunt Ruby. Just look how many children are waiting in line over there to buy your tickets. George started that line. Besides, he found my bag. Please don't be angry with me. Well, said the ticket seller, if you put it that way, I guess I'll just have to forget about it. Let's shake hands, George. Just then, the man with the yellow hat joined. How about a ride for everybody? The treat's on me. So, they all went on the roller coaster again. Curious George goes to a bowling alley. Let's go to the new bowling alley, George, said the man with the yellow hat. The famous bowler, Lois Taylor, is giving a demonstration. The newspaper reporters and the TV cameraman will be there. They got in their little blue car, and off they went to the bowling alley. A crowd of people was standing around the TV camera. You can go and watch, George, said the man. But remember, don't get into trouble. How did they make a television program? George was curious. He tried to see what was going on. Above the crowd was a long pole with a microphone at the end. George leaped up and landed on the pole. Now we could see what was going on. The reporter was talking to the famous bowler. The crowd was all around him. George leaned down to get a better look. He leaned over a little too far. The microphone's tipping, the cameraman cried. George slid down the pole and landed on Lois Taylor, the famous bowler. Get him out of here, cried the reporter. He's interrupting my program. He's spoiling my grand opening show, Mr. Manella. Somebody catch him. By now, everyone was shouting or laughing, or trying to catch George. George slipped through the reporter's legs, dodged in and around the people, and ran to the nearest bowling lane. At the end of the lane was a strange machine. It was the pin setter, a good place for George to hide. Let's start the demonstration, said the owner. I hope nothing else goes wrong. Now the crowd could watch Lois Taylor. She picked up her bowling ball, aimed carefully, and rolled it down the lane toward the pins. All 10 pins went flying. Everyone clapped. The ball came back, and the famous bowler picked it up. She had to wait until the machine scooped up the pins and set them down again. But the machine didn't move. Oh no, cried Mr. Manelli, the pin setter must be broken. He pushed several buttons, but nothing happened. The machine just didn't work. Lois Taylor was angry. How can I give a demonstration if the pin setting machine doesn't work, she asked, and walked off. Mr. Manelli was angry too. What am I going to do now, he asked. Wait, someone cried. Look down there. Everybody looked. The pins were being picked up, but not by the machine. 4 hands reached down and set them in their places. It was George. Now the famous bowler could bowl again. George was faster than any pin setting machine. Great, a monkey for a pinboy, shouted the reporter. Let's get him on TV. Good idea, said the cameraman. We'll interview George with Lois Taylor. After the game, Mr. Manelli shook George's hand. Thanks, George, he said. I was mad at you for playing around with the microphone, but you made up for it by helping Lois Taylor finish her game. Well, George, said the man with the yellow hat, you didn't get a chance to bowl, but it looks as if you'll be on TV. And so he was. Curious George goes to the aquarium. Let's visit the new aquarium, George, said the man with the yellow hat. You've never been to one. They got into their little blue car and drove off. The manager of the aquarium met them at the door. Why don't you come with me? I'm going to feed the seals now. The manager took a pail full of fish and went to the tank. Up, Billy, up, he called. Billy, the big seal, jumped straight into the air and caught the fish. George was fascinated. Now do a twist, said the manager. And Billy did a twist. Then he jumped up and caught another fish. George was watching, but only a few people were in the audience. The next show will be at 2 p.m., folks, said the manager. George wandered off. Now he was behind the fish tanks filled with all different kinds of fish. Leaning against the tank was a net on a long pole, and on the floor was an empty pail. Could George feed the seals too? He was curious. He took the pole, went to the tank, and dipped it into the water. He caught lots of fish. And soon the pail was full. Just then, a guard walked down the hall. He stared at the tank. Hey, what's going on? He shouted. He blew his whistle. Guards came running from all directions. There he is, cried one of the guards. Somebody catch him. Stop him, shouted another guard, and ran after George. George was scared. He headed for the seal tank, dived right in, and landed on the back of the seal. Look, a monkey, someone shouted. The crowd clapped and cheered. With a twist of its head, the seal flipped George high into the air. Another seal caught him. Soon all the seals swam over. They wanted to flip George, too. Wow, the audience cried. George flipped into the air, and the seals took turns catching him. It was the best show the audience had ever seen. Finally, George landed on the trainer's platform. Suddenly, a hand reached out and grabbed George by the ear. It was the guard. George was trapped. The manager rushed over. Wait, he said, let him go. But he was fishing in our tank, said the guard. Never mind, said the manager. He made up for it by putting on a good show. How would you like the job in the seal show? I don't think he's quite ready for that, said the man with the yellow hat. George and the man with the yellow hat thanked the manager and drove off in the blue car.